following program is a production of Ho'ike Kauaʻi Community Media.
Hi, welcome to the show where we're going to talk trash for 20 minutes or so. I'm Max Richardson.
And I'm Allison Fraley, and on this episode we're going to be talking about waste diversion.
So let's jump right into it. Since this is the first episode, before we get into the nitty-gritty stuff, I figured it would be prudent to ask some just getting to know you questions. So your name's Allison, we got that already.
Yeah.
What is your job title? What do you do?
So I'm the chief of the solid waste division.
Okay.
And what I do is make sure that all of our operations are running. We have 4 refuse transfer stations where people can drop off their trash or their recyclables. We have programs at the transfer stations. And then we have the landfill where all of the waste eventually does end up going. But before any of that happens, we have waste diversion programs. So we have contracts and services surrounding those and public education too.
Awesome. All right, so without putting too fine a point on it, without being too alarmist, Kauai's garbage situation is pretty serious right now.
Yes.
What are some ways that the average person like me can reduce the amount of waste that's being put into our landfill?
Well, I have to tell you, there's a lot of ways that people can reduce their waste.
That's excellent news.
Yes, it is. I want to preface all this by saying that we have a website. It's kauai.gov/recycling, where you can get all the information that we're going to talk about and learn about what you can do to divert waste. Also, if you have any questions about where to dispose of items or how to recycle items, you can call our hotline. We have people available live people answering the phone during business hours, and the number is 808-241-4841. Again, 808-241-4841. That's where people can call to get help. But for your regular household recyclables, we have 8 locations, and the items that we take there have to be source separated, which means you bring them in the different categories and put them into bins that are clearly labeled. And so cardboard is one of the categories, mixed paper is another, glass, metals, and plastics. And so nowadays, people are using Amazon to shop a lot, and they're generating a lot more cardboard than they used to. So I would say that one important thing people can do to reduce waste is to recycle that cardboard at these drop locations. And mixed paper is another one that people don't think about a lot, which is any of your box, they call it box board, but if you eat a box of crackers, that cracker box is recyclable, along with any junk mail. And so people generate a lot more paper than they think about. So those are examples of things that you can do just as a regular consumer to divert waste.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's a lot of power in our hands as far
Yes.
as waste diversion is concerned. So what are some other ways? How can individuals help keep waste out of the landfill, aside from household recycling?
Okay, so there are so many categories of waste that can be diverted. So I'll give you an example, food waste. Food waste is an issue because it's putrescible, which is a big word, but what it means, it's smelly and rotten. It can get rotten, it will get rotten, and then also, it's going to attract birds and things like that. So the best way to manage food waste is to compost it. The county has had a program for more than 20 years where we give away free backyard composting bins. And all you need to do is call our office at the number that I provided and make an appointment and pick up a bin. We have a video that is on our website that teaches you how to use them. And it's a really quick video. And our composting bin is called an earth machine. And it's called a machine, but there's no moving parts. It's just basically this black container about 3 feet high and 3 feet wide that you can put your food and yard waste into. and create an actual compost product. So that's our most economical program because we don't have to take waste anywhere. It's done all in your own backyard, and it's really fun to do. And so I recommend anyone who doesn't have a composting bin to give us a call and find out about getting your own bin. Also with food waste, there's actually a business that accepts food waste from people. It's called Kauaʻi Compost. And it has a service fee, but you can look it up online, and they actually give you bins, and they take your waste and then they give you compost. So it's a really great program.
Yeah, that sounds great. And especially if you don't have a large enough backyard to accommodate putting that bin someplace where you won't have to smell it from your house.
Yeah, and actually it's not smelly. If you do it right, you're supposed to mix 1 part food waste with 3 parts dry brown waste, and you can even use shredded paper.
Oh, okay.
So if you shred your documents, you can put that in there. It will really work to make some good compost.
Can you use like torn up, like you were just mentioning Amazon boxes? Can you use like torn up cardboard boxes? Or
I mean it's quite a task to tear those up, but you could. And so a paper shredder and shredding paper is a little easier. But for cardboard boxes, what you could do in the composting realm is if you have a large yard and you want to like keep weeds down, and this is what farmers do on a larger scale, is you can use cardboard, as a weed reducer. Yeah.
Okay. Like just put it down on the ground so that, like a ground sheet.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
the weeds won't grow up through it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that's good information. I know that's a common misconception about backyard composting. So common that I misconceived it myself, is that it's going to be stinky.
Yeah, no, it certainly wouldn't if you did it correctly. And as I said, we do have a video that can teach you. And one rule of thumb is that the smaller you shred any kind of brown items, you can also put grass clippings in there. The faster it will go. And you can work your pile, like turn it a little bit to make sure it goes faster, or else you can just let it go slowly and see how it goes. But there's lots of ways to compost at home.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Well, I know the way that I've been meaning to get one of those compost bins, but the way I usually engage with composting is I have a chicken coop. And so most of my food waste just goes into the chicken coop and gets turned into eggs.
And that's a great point, that animals can help out with food waste reduction. So at the commercial level, a lot of restaurants actually use pig farmers as a way to get rid of their food waste.
I've heard of that, actually. They do that here on Kauai too?
They do that here on Kauai, and It's actually a big part of waste reduction here on Kauai, is that pig farmers are involved taking food from restaurants and keeping it out of the landfill.
That's awesome, and it's good for everybody. Okay, so to pivot to a less renewable resource, plastics are a big problem that we hear about these days. What plastics are recyclable on Kauai? Can I just take any plastic object and throw it in the plastic bin, or?
Well, that's what some people think. And, unfortunately, plastics are very difficult recyclable to manage. So the only plastics that are accepted on Kauai, or even in the state actually, are number 1 and number 2 plastic bottles and jars. So just because your plastic item might have a 1 or a 2 on it, doesn't mean it's recyclable. It has to be a blown plastic, which is a bottle or a jar. Okay. So there's plastic trays, like tofu dishes, takeout containers that aren't actually recyclable. We used to take those. We found no markets at all. It was a terrible situation. And so we are, limited to only those 2 types of plastic. Now there's so many types of plastics, 3s through 7s. There's film plastics as well, which are bags. There are large retailers that actually have bins out in front of their stores where they're accepting plastics.
I think I've seen that at Target.
Target, Safeway. And so, those plastics can be recycled there if they're very clean. That's another issue with plastic, is it does need to be clean. It can't have food in it or anything like that. And so, the advice that I'd like to give about plastic is that, it should be avoided, really. If you have an option to not buy plastic and use an alternative container, like, even for a beverage, to do aluminum instead of plastic. Aluminum can be recycled over and over and over and over, and it's a great product instead of plastic if you have that choice.
It makes the beer taste different, though.
What? No, drink seltzers.
Oh.
Seltzers are great, and they're always in those aluminum containers.
And less fattening, too.
And what else do I want to say about plastics? Oh, we do actually have a swap and drop at the Kauaʻi Resource Center. It's located in Lihue. It's right in front of the Lihue transfer station, where we do reuse of packaging, like peanuts.
Oh, yeah.
Those foam peanuts. People don't use those as much anymore, which is great.
Yeah, but they do use plastic bags that are filled with air instead.
Yeah,
so.
those plastic airbags aren't so much, Hopefully, I've seen producers switch to more biodegradable products besides plastic nowadays. They're using craft paper and other items and really plastics is another issue, like with manufacturers need to switch over to items besides plastic. So we don't have, because unfortunately I have to say that, of all the plastics that are produced on the earth, about only 9% are actually recycled. That doesn't mean that 9% of what you put in the recycling bin, if you do it correctly, is recycled. It just means that everything that's produced, it's just such a convenient product that a very small portion are actually recycled. So it's something to be avoided at all costs.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And it can be tricky, but it's worth the effort, I think.
And one more thing I want to say is that I've also seen manufacturers lightweighting plastic. So, for instance, there used to be like nuts sold in giant, hard plastic containers.
Yeah.
And now they're in film plastic, which is 80% less plastic.
Yeah.
So they're working on it. Plastic just in general is kind of a toxic product. And okay, finally what I want to say is bottled water is something that people shouldn't buy.
Yeah, you know what? I have been saying that my entire adult life. I'm like, you guys, this stuff falls out of the sky.
Yeah.
Which is a thing that people usually, it's a rhetorical device, right? People say like, oh, it's not just going to fall out of the sky. But water, it falls out of the sky.
Yeah, it's free.
Why are you paying money for it?
Yeah, it's a healthy beverage. So that's great that people are drinking water. But we have great tap water on Kauai. Yeah. If you have bad pipes, get a Brita pitcher. If you use a filter system, and the reusable bottles are all the rage. They're very trendy, and so people should be using those.
Totally.
And at the airport, at the county building, at other locations, they do have bottle fillers with filtered water that you can use. So I really encourage people, please don't buy bottled water. It is not good for the environment.
Yeah, no, and it's not good for your wallet either. You buy if you buy one of those metal water bottles. I got a fake, a knockoff Hydro Flask at Ross for like $15. I've had it for like 4 years.
Yeah.
Keeps my water cold. So I think the recycling program that most people in Hawaii are familiar with is the High Five program.
Yeah.
Where you pay a deposit when you buy certain bottled or canned products, and you get that money back at a redemption center. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, what I have to say about that, first of all, is that it's a great program in the sense that there's an economic incentive to recycle. And so, before we had that program, we didn't have a lot of these single-use bottles being recycled.
Right.
So that's wonderful that that's happening. And there are 5 locations throughout Kauai. I'd say check our website at kauai.gov/high5. Actually, HI5 is where you can get the information on all the different locations. They're not, their hours are limited, but you can go and get your redemption there. So it's for specific products, though, based on the types of containers and then also what's in them. So there are certain products that you don't get a redemption for, such as milk, hard liquor, and things like that. But it's plastic, glass, Aluminum and bimetals are the containers that you can get your refund for. And then another thing is, if you don't want to go to the Redemption Center, stand in line and get your refund, you can always give it to friends, neighbors. There's organizations. You can call our office at 808-241-4841 to find out where you could take them if you don't want to take the trouble of doing it yourself.
All right.
Yeah.
And don't mix your bimetals in with your aluminum cans. The guy at the Redemption Center will hate you.
Oh, you learned that the hard way?
Learned it, yeah.
Yeah.
And now I know better, but my roommate often forgets. So sometimes I'll turn in what I think is a bag of cans, and the guy comes over and is like, "You can't have these soup cans in there." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Oh, yeah. And we do take the soup cans
Right.
at the Kauai Recycles drop bins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I know they take the soup cans at least the High Five Redemption Center in Kauaʻi, the one I go to.
Okay.
They take them. You just have to separate them out from the soda cans.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then I want to mention also in Kilauea, up at Nanaho, they operate on Tuesdays and Fridays, and they take both the High Five Redemption as well as non-High Five, and they accept from businesses.
Oh, that's really good to know.
And so because our regular Kauai Recycles drop bins, the 8 locations throughout the island that take the regular household recyclables, are not for businesses. They're just for residents.
Right.
For businesses, they can recycle at Garden Isle Disposal, and they're in Nawili Wili Harbor, and they'll accept loads of recyclables. You can learn more by calling us or going on the website.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds like the takeaway, if you're watching this show, should be call the number, scan the QR code, click the link.
Yeah, and we'll get you that.
Okay, so what is this county reuse program that I hear about? I think you mentioned it briefly earlier, but can you go into a little more detail about it?
Yeah, so during COVID, we found out that the thrift stores were really struggling with being able to have enough staff to accept all the items that were coming in. And a lot of items that were coming into the thrift stores a few years ago were damaged in a way that they couldn't accept them, and that they were just essentially picking through a few items that they could actually resell, and then having to dispose of a lot of items that they were getting from their customers. So what we did was we came in to fill the gap and created a partnership with ARC. They're located over on Oahu, and they have volunteers who can accept all kinds of reusable items from Kauai residents and ship them to Oahu and either refurbish, market, or actually ship them worldwide where they can be used. So our reuse option at the Kauai Resource Center, we accept items once a month. We advertise when we're doing it. It's Friday toward the end of the month. And we actually go to the thrift stores the day before our collection day, and they take all of their stuff that would have gone to the trash, and they accept that, and then they accept from residents, so can come on a Friday and drop off all of their reusables. And we're talking about things like sheets that might have a rip in them, or a comforter that has a little stain on it, or clothes that have like balls on them and aren't perfect or anything, but they can be. And then furniture and household goods like glasses and mugs and things that thrift stores were having a really hard time turning over are being able to be turned over and reused through this program.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's
it's a really
cool.
great program. We're really proud of it.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it sounds like deservedly so. That's. I feel like that's a big question. Is like, what do I do with this whatever it is? This pair of shoes that I don't want to wear anymore. Yeah. This jacket that my kid grew out of, but it's still a perfectly fine jacket, or whatever it is.
Or maybe it's not the greatest. Maybe you don't have the greatest coffee table. It might need a little care. That care is going to be taken. Yeah, it's going to be taken by ARC. They're gonna. They have a great program on Oahu where they're, repurposing, refurbishing things, and actually making them useful and available for sale or to give away to people in need throughout the world.
That's awesome, and that's ARC, A-R-K,
yeah,
like the one Noah had. Oh, A-R-C.
Yes.
A-R-C, like an arch without the H.
Yes.
All right. And what about appliances? What can people do with old appliances?
Okay, so appliances are actually banned from the landfill. We cannot accept appliances by state law. And so appliances need to go to either Puhi Metals, and that's in Puhi, on Puhi Road, or else at Hanalei, Kauaʻi, or Hanapepe transfer station, we do accept appliances at those locations. And I'm also want to mention that scrap metal, any kinds of metals can be taken to those locations as well. Hanalei, Kauaʻi, Puhi Metals, and Hanapepe transfer station, and they'll get recycled. So that's been helpful, this landfill ban. And I just want to mention the landfill ban. It's technically a restriction, but it's a ban for commercial on cardboard, green waste, and metals that we put into place many years ago that's really helped us keep that stuff out of the landfill.
Well, good.
Yeah.
The more we can keep out of there, the better.
Yes.
What about e-waste? What about electronic waste?
So electronic waste, that is a problem that just came about 20 years ago. We're noticing that there's a lot out there, and there's actually a state law. It's a producer responsibility law that passed back in 2011, where there are certain items that are not allowed to be disposed of by businesses, and that manufacturers are required to develop programs to be able to accept these materials. So on Kauai, we have Puhi Metals on Puhi Road, where actually businesses and residents can take any kind of electronics free of charge. So, a big one is televisions. And televisions don't last that long nowadays.
No.
I mean, I just had a brand new television break after a couple of years. And those are big and bulky, and electronics usually have a lot of toxic elements in them. So we really, even though residents don't have a requirement to recycle them, we highly encourage everyone to recycle. So Puhi Metals is open 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, from 7:30 to 3:30, and you can take any of your electronics there.
Okay, so that's TVs,
Yeah.
computers,
Laptops.
smartphones, laptops. What about like alkaline, like AA batteries?
AA batteries is a different program. So we do have, at the Kauai Resource Center, we have battery recycling program where we take NiCad batteries and the alkaline batteries, like the AA, AAAs, your common batteries. And if you look on our website, you'll see there's actually 3 categories, and we ask that people separate them. And but it's open 5 days a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And we also have our household hazardous waste collection events, and those are biannual. So we actually just had one, so we're not going to have one for another 6 months, but it's on our website too. So batteries is something that we take at the household hazardous waste collections, but those collections are for anything that's hazardous, for residents only, but things like household cleaners, things that you generate in your garage or in your workshop or use for lawn care, any kind of pesticides, things like that, poisons, flammables.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's a lot of stuff. What else can people do to help that I haven't already asked you about?
So there's a lot of opportunities beyond your own home. You can start a recycling program in your workplace, at your church. You can help your friends and neighbors start recycling programs. Another thing is you can just pick up a new habit. If you're already a recycler, and I'm preaching to the choir here, you can do something new, because there's a lot of things. People will say, oh, I recycle, but they're only talking about aluminum cans. But have you recycled your paper? Because again, paper is a big one. Once you start to separate the paper in your household, you'll realize how much you actually generate. And then again, the cardboard boxes is a great way to start a new habit. Get a composting bin. And I can't stress enough about how you can tell other people and share the information. When you go to a party and you see that they don't have recycling set up, you can ask why and work with that person. You know, peer influence is really important when it comes to waste diversion and recycling.
Yeah, you can be that guy. And if there's enough that guy and that gal, then it'll stop being a that guy thing. It'll
Yeah.
just be, then the guy that doesn't have the recycling bin is that guy.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's like the recycling police. You can be the recycling police.
Yeah.
And I love what you just said. That's great.
Thanks. We're talking about that guy. On the average person's mind that isn't as enthusiastic about recycling is just that all these different programs and stuff, it just seems so inconvenient. You know, it's so convenient for me to just take whatever it is I don't want anymore and put it in the garbage. What do I do if that's me?
Well, first of all, I understand it isn't convenient. You know, there's all these different recyclables require different handling. We haven't even talked about everything. There's things like tires, propane tanks, all of these items, and those are recyclable at the transfer stations. I get it, but you know, Kauaʻi has limited landfill space, and it really is going to require the effort of every single person to make sure that we can reduce the impacts that every single person is putting on our landfill. So first of all, there's reduce, reuse, recycle. That's called the waste diversion hierarchy, and those words are in order for a reason. So the most important first thing you can do is reduce. It's called source reduction, and that means not making the waste in the first place. And so we're talking about being mindful when you're at the store. Do you really need that thing? Do you really need all of those little pieces of plastic in these conveniently wrapped packages? Or could you buy something in bulk and split it up and use reusable containers to, you know, have your kids' lunches or things like that? And then there's reuse. Buying a durable product, something that you can reuse over and over. I mean, water bottles are an example of reuse. Recycling is really the last thing you should be doing. You should be buying durable products, focusing on things that are going to last and that you don't need to continue to buy over and over again.
Yeah, all right. That sounds like sound advice.
And if anybody needs help, especially businesses, you know, because it does take a little bit of work to figure out how to do it. There's certain steps. We have them listed on our website. But if people need personal help, they really want to know what they can do, they can always give us a call.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah, because we can't possibly cover everything on no matter how many episodes of the show we do. We can't cover everything that everyone would want to know. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have a question, these people are really smart about this stuff, and you can call them. And that was something that I wanted to ask too, going back to composting and retaining your recyclable or reusable materials. Mm-hmm. It's not on topic, but it was just something that I personally was thinking when you were talking about the compost bins. Mm-hmm. What can I do with, let's say, so I got that compost bin, I put all my food waste and yard waste and stuff into it. It turns into like usable mulch or usable compost. Yeah. What could I do with that compost besides, I think what everybody knows compost is for fertilizing soil. But what else can you do with it?
That's a good question.
I mean, question
I feel like, you know, you could offer it to a friend or neighbor. Whenever I talk about composting, people are really excited about the product that it creates. So you could certainly save it and give it to a friend or neighbor. It is a soil amendment. You know, people think it's soil, but it's not. It's something that you just work into the soil. Right. And, you know, unless you're living in an apartment, but we have mainly, you know, single family dwellings here. Right. You usually can find a place to put it. Yeah.
Okay.
You could mix it with potting soil though and use it for potted plants too.
All right. So I guess unless there's anything, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about or that you had to say to our truly massive viewing audience?
I can't think of anything now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is all we've got for today. This is obviously a very dense, a very broad topic, and there's a lot that we could talk about. We could sit here all day and talk about recycling and waste and the landfill situation, and we're going to do that in future episodes. So we'll leave it there for now, but tune in next month and we'll have more interesting trash to talk.
Yeah,
So,
and thanks so much. It's been a pleasure talking trash with you.
yeah. Thanks for coming on, Allison. I'm really happy that we're getting to do this. And yeah, thanks for coming into the studio.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. And
Aloha.
we'll see you next time. Aloha. But we're gonna have more episodes like this.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about all the different topics. All right, I gotta start over.